Today, we're going to be talking about ownership. We're going to be talking about ownership, okay, as opposed to being a renter. And when I say renter, I'm not just talking about, like you're renting a house where you live. So I'm talking about that mindset, of renting things versus owning things. One of the saddest realizations to me is that most people actually die and never own their own house. I don't have the data, but it would appear that perhaps anywhere between 5 to 10% of people, of the population, ever own their own home. But a lot of people think that it is about having a lot of money before you own your own home, or actually own your business, or own whatever it is. But I'm going to show us some very powerful concepts today that would turn you from a renter to an owner, and it doesn't require money. A few years ago, someone told me something that's stuck with me. It's very powerful. I actually tell that story in my book, Financial Freedom for Every Busy Professional. He took me a couple of years ago to look at some properties in Lekki in Lagos, and of course, they were calling very huge amounts of money. And the challenge, as you know, with Nigeria and many parts of the sub-Saharan Africa, same thing in Ghana, you have to put down the cash if you needed to buy a house. So if it is 150 million, you have to pay in cash because there's no mortgage that people could use to acquire property. Anyway, so of course, I didn't have the kind of cash that he was calling. So I made a statement. I said, well, this requires a lot of money, so, and I don't have this kind of money that you're calling, right now. That's what I said then. And then he said, sir, let me tell you that owning your own home is not for the rich. Owning your own house, it is for the wise, not for the rich. See, that got me. And that's the foundation for the conversation we are having, today, because a lot of people can easily be put off and say, oh, I earn very little salary. I have very little money. I can't buy land. I can't build my own house. I'm only a civil servant. Or people say, okay, with 80,000 naira, I don't see how in the world, I can own my own house. But let's talk about the mentality, first of all, that mindset, and that, mindset. I'm looking for another word of either being an owner or being a renter. I had an experience, several years ago. The first time I flew first class. When I came back to Nigeria, I was telling my friends, it was just an incredible experience. Flying first class. It was within Europe. It was a transatlantic flight. And boy, up to that time, I never knew that there were parts of the plane that were different, from where the rest of the people in coach and economy class sit. In fact, the space for one first class passengers, in my estimation at that time, would be like where 4 or 6 economy class passengers, would sit, and there was all kinds of comfort, and literally every couple of minutes, the air hostess came to spoil you, whether you wanted champagne, wanted a drink, or something to eat. It was just moment by moment. There was a place to sleep, and it was really incredible. So of course, when you have that kind of experience for the first time, you talk about it. So so my friends were tired of hearing about this excitement and things like that. So one of them just said, "Oh, believe matter, plane, na plane. You people arrived at the same time and it's the same plane and all that. So whether first class or coach or third or economy, it didn't really matter." And I said something, that I hadn't forgotten, because that thing actually speaks to me all the time. I said, yeah, it was the same plane, but it was never the same experience. It was the same plane, but it was not the same experience. And it's exactly the same way, when we are passing through this planet, our 70 years, or whether we live 80 years or 100 years, or people live up to 40 years and then they die and all that. It's the same planet, but the experience is completely different between someone who owns things and someone who just rents things, because he doesn't own. Okay, so it's the same planet, it's the same Earth. Yes, we're moving through that same planet, but the experience of an owner is completely different from the experience of the renter. So the question is, how do you move from becoming a renter to an owner? And that's really where I'm going. But before I go there again, let me tell you a story that my mother told me. My mother was funny. She went to heaven a couple of years ago. I don't know between my mother and my father who was funnier. Both of them were really very funny. And mom told us lots of stories, and her stories were unforgettable. So there was this one about a special party or festival of some sort that was declared in the animal kingdom. The sheep wanted to go, but didn't have clothes. Didn't have clothes good enough for the party. And so the sheep went to tortoise and borrowed one beautiful Babylonian embroidered, attire. The sheep was really looking very beautiful in it. All right, so they all went to the party, and for some reason, the sheep stole the show. And so there was a time of dancing. The sheep was dancing. Every eye was on the sheep, and then they were cheering. And the cloth was really very beautiful. Everybody admired how magnificent the sheep was in the cloth, and how, she was swaying, and then the cloth would flow beautifully, and then the animals were squealing. Tortoise was in one corner, just seething with anger. It's like, yeah, that's my cloth, and then I was sitting with anger and jealousy and envy, because the sheep had all the attention. At some point, the tortoise couldn't stand it anymore, so he went straight to the center of the party where the sheep was dancing, and then slapped the sheep and said, in our language, "Oh yeah, yiputa say so." Yiputa say so. Yiputa say so meant just remove this my cloth here right now. Remove it right now. And then of course can imagine the embarrassment, and everybody was and all that, as it, and the sheep was so embarrassed. So it's the same way. If you don't have ownership, there's so much embarrassment. There's lack of confidence. Sometimes it affects your self-esteem. And when you are an owner, you are renting something. The owner of the property can at any time tell you, yiputa say so, and then you have no choice. So living on earth as a renter and never owning something is terrible, to say the least. Besides that, in addition, the only way you solve generational poverty is through ownership. It's through ownership, because you must have assets, you must have something to pass on from your generation to the next. You can't pass on rent, something you rented. So you're renting a house or a room, somewhere, 2-bedroom, whatever, somewhere in Lagos or Oka, Abuja, whatever, Accra, London. So if you die, you cannot pass on that rental. You cannot say to your children, okay, this place, I've rented this place for 10 years, so I'm passing it on to you to own. You can't do that. Therefore, you cannot begin to deal with generational poverty until you have killed that rental mentality and began to own things, for yourself. Okay. So when I realized these things, it set me thinking, how do I become an owner? How do I ensure that I'm not just a consumer renter? I'm renting house, I'm renting food, as it were, because I don't produce it. I'm renting my telephone and telecommunications. I'm renting water. I'm renting literally everything, clothes, because I don't produce them. So sometime last year, I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? Every single thing I use, I want to become an owner. I want to own everything I use. Remember, I told you that the experience of the owner is completely different from the experience of a renter consumer. Completely different. You're confident, you have property rights. Nobody can come to you and say yiputa or say so, at any time. You can't really compare that, and again, if you're on salary, there's nothing wrong with salary, but that's also rental. That is also rental. Someone, you're renting out. You don't own the income producing mechanism of your life. It actually depends on somebody who is like the landlord. In this time, is the landlord of your labor, okay, who gives you. So you work as a renter. Nothing wrong with that, because it's still important, and it's still possible to work in an organization to work with an employer, but to work with an ownership mentality, to see yourself as you're actually working for yourself. You're putting in your best, and getting results, because you're an owner. You're not seeing yourself as working for your employer. You are a partner, and then you are working from an ownership mentality. It's a different experience than that you go to work just to earn monthly salary, to keep, as they say, body and soul together. Okay, so what I now did was I made a list of the different things that I use and decided I must own them. Because listen, if I use the telephone every day, goodness, I don't want to be a renter. I don't just want to be a renter. It's something that, I looked at the telephone. It costs me quite a lot on a monthly basis in 1 year. So I don't want to be a renter. I don't want to be spending this. I literally spend hundreds of thousands of naira on telephone, hundreds of thousands of naira on telephone and data every single year. And so if I must spend 100,000 naira, if I must spend 200,000 or 500,000 naira on anything, I want to be an owner. I shouldn't be renting and paying off 500,000, because once that 500,000 is gone for the year, that's it for the renter. But if I'm owner, I'm actually, so it's like, how do I spend money and at the same time earn money from the spending? Now, that was a very, very wise question, and it changed everything. And I'm going to tell you what I did, and then you can do the same thing. So I made all those categories. There is food, there is telecommunications, there is housing, there is, all that. So, and here was a trick. I decided I was going to become an owner by investing in the stocks. There you go. Just type boom in the chat. That's, so I picked, key performing stocks in the stock market, for all these things. Like in telecommunications, I picked a key performing stock, and I invested, and I invest regularly in that telecommunications company. I invest regularly. I invest regularly, sometimes weekly, but at least every month. I buy shares of that telecommunications company. And so I am an owner. That's what share means. So now I own telecommunications. So when I'm talking and I tell you, it's a completely different shift and different mindset, different experience. Because anytime I pick up my phone to call and I'm using the data or I'm buying data, I'm buying from my own business. So anytime I send a text or anytime you call me, I am an owner in telecommunications. I own it. Do you feel where I'm going? So I own it. Then I went to the FMC, to the food sector, FMC food sector. I bought two stocks in food. So should I have any need to, even though I don't drink milk and all that, I don't drink milk, but a lot of people drink milk. But I said, since I eat food, I also want to own the food making companies in the country. So I selected some food companies and I bought their shares. So anytime you go to that market and then you buy water, or you buy milk, or you buy biscuits, you're making me rich. Okay. Anytime you get into that place, you buy milk, you buy anything made by these companies, and then their products are all over the place, so people are buying it every day. So anytime you buy that thing, you're making me rich. Why? Because I own shares in that company. So I did the same thing. In fact, today I decided I'm going to do the same thing for the construction. So there is a cement company that I want to invest in. So anytime you buy a bag of cement, or I buy a bag of cement to create a gutter or to do something, I'm buying from my business because I'm an owner, through shares. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize is because there's so many shiny objects, in town. These days, there's bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, network marketing, all kinds of things. People have generally ignored the stock market, and it is good for people like us, who have this long-term kind of investment outlook. So now people are not looking into and then the stock prices of some of these key companies are just incredible buy opportunities at this time. So some of us are buying as much as we can. So this is where I'm going to stay. I think we've reached the 18-minute mark. So let me just summarize what I'm talking about, what I've said. That being an owner versus being a renter gives you a different experience. The owner has a more powerful experience than the renter. He has peace of mind, he has confidence, he is in a better position to fulfill his purpose in life much better than the guy who is renting. Okay, and then I also told you that the first step to breaking the backbone of generational poverty is ownership. You must own systems that produce income, own assets. And then one of the most important goals for every single person listening to me is to own your own home. Look, when you own your own house, the feeling is incredible. The freedom that it gives you, the confidence, and again, you free the hundreds of thousands that you pay every year in rent, and then you can now put that into something else. I also told you that you don't really need a lot of money to become an owner. You can start becoming an owner by investing on those things that you eat every day. For instance, I eat cola, bitter cola. So I use bitter cola fairly regularly, and then sometimes when I travel to the US or Europe on different, I always make sure I have bitter cola because So in the event of food poisoning or something, you eat something that upsets your system, there's nothing created, by man that's as good as bitter cola. So I decided to plant bitter cola. So I've planted bitter cola trees. Yeah. So produce what you eat. Be an owner, not just a renter. You're buying everything, but you own nothing. That's terrible. You buy everything every day. You buy food. You buy water. You buy your monthly rent. You buy this, buy that, buy clothes, but you own nothing. Stop it. Stop it. And if you haven't joined the 3-day abundance challenge, please do so immediately, because these are some of the kind of ideas and practical things that I'm going to be sharing with you during the 3 days of abundance. It's going to blow your mind, and you've read the stories of people who were part of it, so you never go wrong doing that. All right, so this is where we'll call it off tonight. And if you think you want me to do this regularly, comment below, comment on the chat, and then let me know what's your preferred time. If you want me to do this like every day, spend 5 to 10 minutes, giving you some of these tips, just let me know, and then let me know what time, and then what day of the week, and then what time is really best for you. And then we can take it from there. In any case, what happens, keep showing up, because you have no idea what's coming your way next. And I'll see you really soon. Bye for now.